Oh man. Okay. Today's guest is licensed psychotherapist Lynell Weiss. Weiss?
Weiss.
I just assumed it looks like Weiss. After completing her master's degree in psychology, Lynell pursued specialized training in art therapy, recognizing the profound impact that creative expression can have on the therapeutic process. I totally agree with that. She developed a unique approach that integrates traditional talk therapy with various art and mindfulness modalities, allowing clients to tap into their subconscious and express themselves in ways that words alone cannot capture. Lynell specializes in working with individuals struggling with anxiety, life transitions, and self-esteem issues, as well as people who are curious about cultivating a deeper sense of emotional and psychological balance in their lives. Lynell runs her own private practice and facilitates groups, workshops, and monthly moon circles, so cool, all in the Los Angeles area. I met Lynell in a group facilitated by our mutual friend Jamie Brooks, and I've also participated in groups run by Lynell, and I have to say I was immediately drawn to her honesty and authenticity. I value her advice and feedback and coaching, and I adore the time I get to spend with her. I always walk away feeling more grounded and yet somehow more energized, and I'm so grateful that you agreed to be our guest today. Welcome, Lynell, and also very proud of myself.
So proud of you. Thank you so much for having me. That was a really sweet addition to the intro.
I'm so happy that you agreed to be a guest. I don't feel like we get enough time to sit and catch up every time we do. I truly feel that way. Like I walk away feeling like, what is this crazy, like the two edges of being like, how do I feel more grounded and more rooted and like knowing what I want to be doing next, but then also like so pumped to go do that thing. You know?
Elsa, that's such a beautiful reflection.
So fun.
Thank you.
Also, I feel like our friendship is so odd in that like we truly, like I'm lucky if I see you 2 times a year.
Yeah.
And yet, because we have been in therapeutic group settings together, you know more intimate details about my life and my state of well-being than most people. And I love that because it comes with such a like immediate intimacy, which is so cool.
And safety.
Yeah, it's
you
great.
know? Yeah, I feel like you and I just drop in immediately. Like it's been like 6 months or 3 months or 3 weeks or a year, and we just immediately go right into the heart of what's real and what's happening, what's alive.
How's the weather?
No.
What's going on with your dogs? I truly didn't even notice that you were like wearing a sling on your arm.
Yes. Honestly, it's a win for me. I was like, how can I camouflage this as best as possible? I mean, and I did it.
You nailed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Really
I feel validated by that.
That story is hilarious.
Very me. And yeah, we both in group have named how much we both struggle with small talk and just like the pleasantries and having to sort of exist on this, I don't know, just like in this like sort of like surface place. And so I really also appreciate that you and I can just get really deep really quickly, and it feels really fulfilling.
But you know, there's people who like they never get there.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what you were just saying about like
do you think they
not
know
caring.
That? Do they know that about themselves?
I don't know. Maybe. I feel like sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Sometimes it's just personality.
Interesting.
Yeah. And to each their own. You know, I trust that those people will find their community and people that they enjoy, and connecting with. And not everybody has to be a good fit for everybody else. But I think that's a lesson you learn as you grow, and you're like, ooh, this person makes me feel really exhausted after an interaction. This person, you know, I walk away and I feel like I just had 4 cups of coffee. You know, like your body sort of lets you know who's a yes and who's a no during that season.
And it's interesting. I totally agree with that choice of words too, because it is your body that lets you know. I love spending time with Chad. We've been together for 10 years now, and I just never get tired. Even when he like really annoys me, I'm never tired of spending time with him. And that to me feels like my body telling me like, yes, this is a great person for me to spend massive amounts of time with.
Yeah.
I go golfing with him when he goes golfing. I don't even golf. I just like go with him. Like we just love spending time together. Not in a codependent way, in a healthy, we enjoy the time way. But when we talk, I will ask him, because I love getting deep with people. And I love the like, what's the meaning of my life? All of it. Like I spend so much, this is where I spend the bulk of my mental time is pondering these questions. And he's just like, I don't know, I never think about that stuff. Like, you've never thought about what the meaning of your life is? He's like, no.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
And I'm like, what? Of course you do. Like, you have such a meaningful, like, he's so intentional. He's so, like, has great boundaries. All the, I'm like, you must have spent time thinking. He's like, no, doesn't really matter.
Wow.
I just do what I want. I'm like, but the way you say it, though, like, it doesn't sound good. Like, can you say it in a different way that like makes me feel better about my choice to have married you? And he's like, well, that's just, it is what it is. I'm like, well, maybe we can just reframe it as like, in another life I already did all of the work and now I'm able to show up as this person who doesn't need to ponder it. He's like, okay, like if that makes you feel better. It does. It really does.
I mean, I understand your need for context.
It's
like,
so
why
funny.
do you like this?
Why don't you think about this stuff? Why is it not important to you? But because he gets it. That's the part that it drives me bananas because I have to think about it.
Right.
And he doesn't.
Right.
And I think truly it's probably just my competitive nature that comes out where I'm like, ugh, why? Give me a reason. What were the steps that you followed?
I could totally see that. And honestly, it probably is. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that from any place of authority, but I imagine that it probably is a little bit of what you just said, right? Like, these are lessons that he's learned somewhere at some point, and he doesn't have to learn them this time around in life school.
It's annoying.
Like, he already graduated that class.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to go again. I know, it's annoying.
Well, I guess it's fair. He's 5 years older than me, so he should be a little bit ahead.
I mean, my response to that would be like, what is that like? What is it like to just live your life and not think obsessively about all the things all the time?
See, that's what I love about you. You went to a curious mind place, and I just went right to judgment.
Oh, I'm fully sitting in my therapist hat right now. There is another part of me that gets real judgmental real quickly. Let's not,
Poor Chad. He's like, I should pop up in every one of your episodes. I'm like, oh, you do. You're how I would give context.
I mean, I would take that as a compliment.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
We have a very, well, now a very happy marriage. We had a really complicated last 2 years and it was not filled with as many happy moments. But I think it's wonderful that he's so supportive of all of these adventures. And even though he refuses to think about anything that got him to this place in life, it's, you know, I think that's why the universe put us together. Like, I am in this place to learn these lessons. And he is so stable and grounded in already knowing that part of his being that it's nice to have, you know, like I don't need to also worry about him having these like big emotional swings because he just stays so
level.
Yeah.
He's like the root system,
yeah,
you know, and like you're the tree and you get to just like sway in the wind.
What's the name for like the dancy guy at the car wash?
Oh, exactly. Yes, you get to be like the floppy man who's like just like
100% my range of emotions.
Same.
We did a test. So he is a good sport because he knows how important it is to me to talk through all of these things. And so anytime we would finish like a group session or I come home from like a moon circle with you or anything, I share some of my downloads and we'll sit and talk about them. And I remember, so like we listened to an Enneagram podcast together to like figure out what our types were. And we read an article someone sent that was like talking about your emotional range, like where do you live? And he's like consistently like a 7 to 8, like on a happiness scale of like a 0 to 10.
Wow.
But like never has no recollection of going above an 8, but also never really dropping below a 7. And like truly does not harbor grudges, doesn't think, like he'll be mad in the moment and then it vanishes, like it doesn't linger.
Wow.
Which I also am like, that's gotta be bullshit, right? Like how does that I'm like,
what kind of an alien are you? What's happening?
Like even in my dreams I'm like still angry about something. But I was like, no, I know what 0 feels like and I know what 10 feels like. And at some point in every day it's like probably between like a 4 and a 9. Just like totally the wild car wash wonky guy just flopping.
Even like just the way you were moving in your chair as you were saying that, like you're fluid. You're flowing with it.
All over the place. But I like it. I can't imagine. I guess I don't know anything different. So
I mean, it's who you are. It's just a part of your temperament, you know, and like he might be different in that way, and that's probably why you were attracted to one another.
Yeah.
You know, because you represent the qualities that probably he doesn't intuitively channel as easily, and vice versa, right? Where like that groundedness, that consistency, that like sort of constant contentment, that's really different than what you're used to experiencing on a daily basis. And there's probably something, I imagine, in those qualities that feels like a really good balance when you're together.
Yeah, I think definitely. And it makes life go more smoothly for the most part. If one of us is like bent out of shape about something, the other one is the voice of reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about, I have only one arm to kind of like represent this, but like I'm thinking about, I think it's Esther Perel who talked about this idea that like a lot of times people think that being in a partnership is like two people leaning on one another, and that's not actually a good place to start from, because then the system can't handle any tension. Right? If any tension hits the system, the whole thing collapses. And so what you're actually looking for in healthy partnership is two people that can be like upright next to each other, and it's what you're describing, right? So if something happens and one of you is bent out of shape, like you can lean on him, but he's solid, right? If he's going through something, he can lean on you and you're solid. And if something is happening in the system, you can lean on each other, but that isn't sacrificing it doesn't sacrifice your individual experiences of stability, and then that's what actually creates that.
And that's not intended to be a long-term solution either.
Leaning on one another. I mean,
well, where you both have to be leaning on each other.
Exactly, and that's temporary. But then you each have practices, relationships, communities, rituals that you engage in that then help you each kind of get back to being upright and whole and rooted on your own.
I love that.
You know, and so that's really what you're describing, is that you can lean on one another, but your sense of harmony is not dependent on leaning on one another.
Definitely not.
That's like more codependent, right? Where it's like one doesn't exist without the other.
Yeah. I think we're both very well versed in taking care of our own emotional needs. Yeah. Emotional, physical, whatever.
Everything.
And then, yes, of course, that's like an area where if something goes haywire, we can support each other through something different. But I mean, I guess to rephrase that, he's not working on any of his emotional needs because they're already met.
Yeah.
I'm working on all of mine on a daily basis.
Yep. I can relate.
Oh man. So I love art therapy. I love art as a mode for healing. How were you like an artist before you started doing this, or did this come to be as you were doing your psychology master's?
Great question. I have always been creative. Like since I was a kid, I was like, you know, I came from the scrapbooking generation. So like, you know, I would scrapbook, and I was into photography, and I took painting classes, and I'm a Pisces. Like I have always been creative, but have never ever identified myself as an artist at all. And then in college is just a weird time, I'll say. Just a weird time. I was going through some stuff and I found film photography, and it was a sanctuary for me. It was like
with a dark room.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, and it felt like a way that I could actually tolerate. It's interesting thinking about it now, like tolerate being in the dark, like tolerate being, you know, in a space where you don't see everything with complete clarity and can still create something really beautiful from that place. And I became obsessed with it. And so when I graduated college and I was figuring out what I was going to do, my mom and I went to some street fair, and the university where I ended up doing my master's program, they had a little booth, and they were talking about art therapy. And so I just started talking to the woman who was running the booth. I told her, like, yeah, I'm not an artist. I don't have any prerequisites or whatever. And she's like, you don't need them. You just need a curiosity and a willingness to learn about this. Like, you can take the prereqs while you're starting the all of the intro classes in the program, and you can do them simultaneously, and you can really cultivate this skill if it's something you're interested in. And I just like dove in head first.
Wow.
It was such a full body yes for me, because I just thought, if I could find a way to integrate creativity into some kind of healing and be able to provide for other people some slice of what I got to experience when I was in the dark room, what better path is there professionally? Like, that's so epic. That gets to bring all the different parts of me to the table when thinking about building a career. So that's how I got into all of this.
That's so awesome. I also love the like universal sign of like, I'm just walking through this fair, and it's like, here's this path forward for you if you just want to take a moment to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So similar how I ended up in my master's program. We were playing Smash Ball on the beach, little wooden paddles.
Yeah.
And one of my younger brother's friends, who I've known for most of our lives, we were just kind of catching up with him, and just out of nowhere, he was like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking about getting a master's. I don't really know. Maybe I'll do an MBA, like that stage of life. And then he's like, actually, Elsa, you would probably really like this program. And he just mentioned it. And I was like, that does sound really interesting. I was never interested in like an MBA for any, it's just not me. And so he told me about, at Gonzaga University, they do a master's in organizational leadership. And when so I just, the next day I was like back at work, pulled up the website, read through their, like, why they offer this program, and then read through the course list, and I was like, well, obviously I'm going to do this. And I applied like in that moment.
Wow.
And then I think I started like within a month.
No
like
way.
The timing was it was like the end of the application period, and a new semester was starting. I was like, well, I don't know who's paying for this, but apparently I never think about money. And yet the universe delivers. And by delivers, I mean I worked full time for the following 18 years to pay off school loans, but I figured that out. And and I loved every single moment of it. I did not love undergrad, but also I had a toddler, and I was a single parent, and it was just, it wasn't like when you think of college, I didn't have any of that. I had like the classes and the homework and the responsibility, and that was where all the fun ended. And so grad school was different. Lillian was like 8 when I started, I think, and 10 or 11 when I graduated. And, I had a full-time job. Like, it was just, it was so much more fun. And when you get to choose what you study, it's like, oh man, I could have done that forever.
Oh man, I so relate. When I was in college, I mean, I always had a really hard time, not being a student, but like studying and it's not even studying, it's test taking. I'm excellent at studying. My study guides are they're so well organized and color coordinated. You would love them, and it's so satisfying to make them. But test taking was always really hard for me, whether it was timing or anxiety or whatever. And so in college, I would study, go take an exam, and it was so frustrating. There was this pattern where like I would make the study guide and I would study for hours and study groups and all these things, and then I would trip up on the exam, and then my roommate, who was like a brilliant test taker but doesn't study at all, would go like literally just glance over my or someone's study guide, go in, take the test, ace it, and I would just sit there like,
not fair.
This has to be a me issue. And then I got to grad school, and I was obsessed with every class that I was in, and genuinely interested and genuinely invested in optimizing the absorption of the information, and I was a straight A student. And that was such an eye-opening moment for me about how important goodness of fit is. Like, if you're studying about something that you don't care about,
it's hard.
It's hard to, I mean, this is just my experience. This is definitely not universal, but for me, I also had ADHD growing up as a kid. Like, if I don't care about what I'm studying about, there's just not a high chance that I'm gonna thrive in that environment. So I get that.
When you are interested in it, you're just retaining the information more. Like, there's context because you're doing more research, or it's fitting into your life or something in a way that allows you to hold on to that information more.
Absolutely. There's personal investment.
I mean, like, no offense to University of Washington, beautiful school, so happy I went there. I cannot tell you a single professor who I took a class from. I couldn't even tell you more than 2 classes that I took. How did I graduate? And I got reasonably good grades, but I definitely didn't feel like I was thriving in my existence there. And now the difference, so I graduated from Gonzaga in 2011, and every year since then I've gone on an alumni retreat. Every year, except for COVID, and even during like the COVID lockdown times, we met virtually.
Wow.
And students come from all across the country, and like we all meet at the same monastery where they like held a class that I took so many years ago. Chad comes, he's like an honorary Zag. It's, it's such a, talk about a group of people who immediately drop in. All we do is come together for one weekend to just fully drop into like the theme for the weekend. So it's like, hi, nice to see you, and go.
I love
and
that.
And it's like everyone has so much space for solitude and reflection and group time and meals. It's just so beautiful. It's coming up again in September. I'm so excited.
That sounds magical.
So if you want to join our awesome little clique, then you should probably go to Gonzaga.
You should probably
get a master's, take that class, drop my name, and then you can join us in 2 to 3 years. No, it's so fun, and it's funny because they have seen us through the entirety of our relationship. So they met us in the first year of our date, and not even the first year. We met in June. That would have been in September. So first couple of months. And I invited Chad to come with me because the aforementioned, I'm obsessed with spending all of my time with him. And he thought about it, because also it's a weird ask. Like, hey, so some people I went to school with, we do like a retreat. It's at a monastery. We talk about, like the 3 foundational principles of like Benedictine monks.
Do you want to come with?
And incorporate them into your daily life. Doesn't that sound fascinating for someone who never contemplates the meaning of his existence? And he grew up, in like a proper Catholic situation. So like his idea of like what a monastery would be like is so different from my experience of these beautiful humans and the space that they've created. And so he didn't answer me right away. And then as it got closer, he was like, I don't know. It was like, it was like the language that he was choosing around it was not what I wanted him to experience. So finally I rescinded my invitation, and I was like, no, this means too much to me. I look forward to it every year, so you can't come. And then he was like, I must.
Yeah, it's the paradox.
He's like, why do you love this so much that you would protect it like so fiercely? And I was like, you just won't get it. It's not for you. So then we had another, I was like, okay, you can come, but it's provisional. You have to, you can't mock it ever. You have to, obey the rules. There's no rules, but it's
be respectful.
You have to experience this in the way that I want you to experience this.
Oh my gosh, I relate with that so much too.
Any issues with control, obviously.
Me neither. Yep.
But, I was like, everyone can experience something so differently.
I know.
And this is I truly wanted him to feel what I felt.
Yeah.
Because it's so special to me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that way about a lot of stuff.
I did.
I very much did with this.
I get that.
So he came, and then, it was interesting because I was a little more reserved that year. Then the next year we went back.
And he came with you again?
Every year. He's been with me every year.
Wow.
He loved it. We both love it. And they love truly, the professor who puts it all together is so kind to invite him. And then, other people were like, wait, can I bring my spouse? And we're like, I don't know. Is he cool?
Is he going to follow the rules?
Are they going to really enhance our experience? But yeah, then the next year, Chad and I were not engaged yet, but had been dating for a year and a couple of months, and had different challenges. At that point, his kids knew me, and we were spending time together, but not quite as a family. And challenges with his ex-wife, and what comes up there when it's now there's a new person on the scene, me being the new person.
Right.
And so there was so much emotion, and so it becomes this intense group therapy situation.
Yeah.
And then the next year we're engaged, and the next year we're married, and then at some point they suggested a book. I think it was after the second year, because I was feeling very unsettled in my place fitting into his world. And there was so much turmoil around that. Blending a family is just, it's a very emotional thing because there's so many different people's emotions coming together.
Yeah.
And that year, the book was on like the importance of stability. Also, it's like that's one of the 3 Benedictine, the vows that they take is a vow of stability. And so we were reading all about this topic, and there was a line in the book, which I wish I could remember what it is. I'll find out what the name is and we'll put it in the show notes because it was a wonderful read. But the guy goes back and he's talking to like maybe his pastor or something, and he's like, I just don't know like why. I think maybe they're both pastors, and he's talking to someone who like has had a congregation for a long time. He's like, I just don't know why like the people aren't like connecting with me. Like they don't trust me. They're not coming to me for advice. And the guy was like, well, you've been doing this for 2 years, so you've earned exactly 2 years worth of stability. And when you've been doing this for 10, you'll have 10 years. And on it, like you can't just jump in and be like, now I'm stable. And it just resonated with me so perfectly in that moment of like, I'm wanting 10 years of married stability.
Right.
But what I really have put in the time for is 1 year of dating.
Yes. Yes.
Like, you're not going to get there unless you actually put in the time. That just, it comes up for me so often.
Yeah.
That little nugget.
I love that. And I think it's like, that's a really important, I don't know what the right word, I don't know if it's reframe or like just recontextualizing it. It's sort of like just getting you back in touch with what actually is, instead of what your expectation is.
Yeah.
You know, like the expectation creates just so much suffering. And if we can zoom out and be like, wait a second, you know, I've been in this for 2 years and I really want my expectation. I talk about this with clients all the time is like, you can't expect to start at the end.
Yeah.
You know, you can't expect to start a brand new journey at the very end of the journey, because if that's your expectation, which is stability, comfort, familiarity, groundedness, expertise, you know, whatever it is, then when you don't meet that expectation, which inherently is totally unrealistic, you think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of suffering when it's actually just practically not a reflection of what's happening in the moment.
Oh, such good advice.
Right? It's like, well, I also just want to say, the advice is good. And does that mean that I always apply it?
Of course.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But you know, we're allowed that. We're allowed those moments of not doing the wise thing that we have already learned or
It's human. It's human. Yeah.
Ugh.
I think about that all the time with people who like come to therapy and they're like, okay, so like
I'm ready.
when is this, like how long, or when am I going to be fixed? I'm like, oh, we're going to need to have a totally different conversation right now.
I mean, even just that language, like there's inherently something broken about you that needs to be fixed.
Yes, exactly. Or how long is it going to take for me to not feel this way?
How long do you want to keep feeling this
Right,
way?
exactly.
How long do you want to continue harboring this issue?
Right. How long do you want to continue resisting this thing versus
I don't
inviting
want to
it
resist
in?
anything anymore.
Yeah. Just so much more effort in the long run. You know, like in the moment, maybe it feels really good.
No.
But in the long run, it doesn't yield good results. I think.
I spent the last 2 years resisting almost every part of my life, and it was so destructive.
So
only to me.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Everybody else was totally fine.
Yeah.
I was miserable.
Yep. I really get that.
And it's funny because I thought that was a lesson that I had just already really mastered from like childhood and adolescence, and nope.
No, there was somebody in one of my moon circles who she was talking about repeating patterns and how, you know, we repeat the same patterns over and over and over again. And oftentimes we think that, like, the visual of it is we think that we're like spiraling downwards. Like every time we find ourselves in a similar position, we think we're going like lower and lower and lower in the patterning. And what she was saying is you're actually spiraling up. And every time you find yourself in a similar position within a repeating pattern, it's from a higher vantage point.
I love that.
And so you can kind of like look, you know, from a bird's eye view and have more data, have more understanding of what happened, what got you there, why are you there, what's the medicine for you there. And so I really appreciated that because I think that's human. I think we all do that. We all repeat the same patterns over and over again, but it just removes a lot of judgment. And I think replaces the judgment with curiosity of like, okay, I've been here before. What's different now? what new information do I have this time that I didn't have 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I can tell you, I had the skill set of a decade of therapy
Right.
and like learning
Yeah.
coping mechanisms.
Exactly.
So all of that was so foundational to my being already. Like I do those things without thinking about them.
Yeah.
And it saved me from feeling worse.
Exactly.
And I knew that in every moment. Like
Yeah.
I was so aware
Mhm.
of that. It didn't make me any more content with
Mhm.
the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't plummet into like despair.
Exactly.
Although I feel like maybe in a journaling session with you, I definitely was like so filled with anger.
Which is so normal. Like if I'm remembering what was happening at that time in your life,
It was
like
a lot of change.
that's good reason to feel angry.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff happening.
Well, there was a lot of change that I don't feel like I necessarily wanted but that's also not fair because that was in hindsight.
Mhm.
I said that I was happy with the changes and then I changed my mind after the fact.
And sometimes I feel like we figure out, not always, but sometimes we figure out what we actually feel or how we actually feel about a situation when we start to feel about it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you make a decision and immediately you feel resentment or dread or anger, that's just data that that's not the right decision, or there's some kind of boundary or limit that really needs to be exercised. And then like you can only understand that in retrospect until you start to, I don't know, like actually I don't know, I was gonna say until you start to like build a relationship with those emotions, but even then I don't think that that's entirely like that doesn't entirely protect you from making a decision and then realizing later on, oh, I actually didn't want that, or that wasn't a good fit for me, or you know, I wasn't actually ready for that. And that's so human.
Totally. And I think in so the decision we're talking about is leaving our old house that I loved, moving to a new city, into a house that I didn't really feel a connection with, but also that being said, I chose this house and the move was my idea. And then like a giant child, I just proceeded to throw a tantrum about it for the next year and a half. And I'm sure that was loads of fun for everyone to be around me. But I think I was so angry with myself because I usually am so in tune with what I want, and I don't have any problem making decisions, and I didn't have any problem making the decision to move out of our house or to choose this one. And I had the vision for this house from the beginning of what I knew it could look like and what it would bring to our family. But I think quite honestly, I didn't want, it felt like afterwards, I don't know what I wanted, like a fucking parade thrown in my honor for like making this sacrifice for the family. There was no parade.
Yeah.
There was no appreciation, by the way, coming from children, right? So this was like my expectations were that like the whole family would be so in awe of my generous nature.
And vision.
And my vision, you know, that like, I don't know. And then it didn't happen, and then it was like, well, this house is not renovated and it doesn't feel like me, and that's very important to my ability to feel safe and grounded, is that I love where I am living and that it feels like my home. And then I became resentful. And it was,
that makes sense.
I don't know that I've ever actually shared the truth behind my misery with anyone, so you're welcome, everyone.
Well, I'm really honored to be the vessel of receiving this information, and it totally makes sense.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, and that's why in hindsight I can laugh at myself and be like, well, that was an incredibly childish tantrum that you were throwing. But I had to get to the bottom of it, and the bottom of it was my expectations were that we were already at the end of this journey. And we were not. We were just beginning. And I found so many ways to blame other people for my unmet expectations, which just made me angrier.
Yep, I get that.
And it got to a point like I would drive past this house. I didn't recognize it. Like I was like, I don't live in that house. This is not the house for me. I shall continue until I find the right house. And it was hard. It was a strain on our marriage. It was a strain on my own emotional state of well-being. Nobody's fault, to be extremely clear, not even my own. It was just a weird, bizarre journey that I needed to learn about. And it only changed after expressing all of that anger and all of those things, getting it all out and like actually sitting with why am I so frustrated. And the frustration came not from this house, surprise, surprise, or even from, you know, a lack of enthusiasm from teenagers. It came from me wanting it to represent so much.
Yeah.
But also, I was not like the way that I was looking at our lives was not aligned with where we are in our lives.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be like, this house is done.
Yeah.
The kids have already gone to college. We've sold this house. We're now living in like southern Spain, and Chad and I are like retired, and we're like traveling around the world.
Right.
Not at all in line with the fact that no, we have actually 4 kids living in this house right now, and dogs, and like we're not moving out anytime soon, and like it's just, I was so far in the future that every day in the present made me miserable.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. Of course. How could you not be?
I don't know. Yeah.
You know,
bananas. That's where, I don't know. I guess I felt also like a bit of bitterness towards myself at like, I know what it feels like to feel grounded and at peace and like in the flow, when just every day you wake up and you're like, fuck, the universe loves me.
Yes.
You know, like everything is so easy and aligned. And then I was like, what? Like through only my own actions, I'm now at this place.
Right. Oh man, I can really, really, really relate to that feeling. It does suck because it's hard to unknow. Yeah. Like it's hard to like unknow or unsee the change when you've embodied something so different, you know? And yeah, I mean, it sounds like what the journey that you've been on with the house is really one of
this poor house. It takes so much abuse.
I know, we're like, sorry house, we love you.
I'm so grateful for you.
We're so grateful for you. No, but
it's a beautiful shelter for our whole family.
It's been a journey of you sort of meeting yourself and the house where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? This house is so symbolic. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, you know, listeners can't see the house, but it's
beautiful.
Glorious.
Yeah,
it's
really
incredible.
Nice.
It feels like you.
There's a reason why I saw it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the house for us.
It's
even the like feng shui number of the house. I think it's, I always forget what the math is, but it's about partnership, like being in community with other humans. And I was like, oh yeah, that was exactly my problem, is I was not willing to be in community with this family where we are at this moment in time
that you currently live with. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that translated into everything. So now, like, I went from being relatively apathetic about what to do next with a business to launching a nonprofit, a brick and mortar store, and a podcast within like 3 months.
Amazing.
And it's hilarious because now people are like, how do you find the energy? I'm like, well, I didn't do anything for the 2 years prior to this other than stew in my own anger. So I feel like I'm well rested.
Yeah.
And now I'm coming out fully recharged.
All fueled.
Yeah. Bottled up unnecessary emotions or necessary, whatever. But it's so much fun. And so all of that, I guess, leading me to the word, this is something we ask everyone who's on the show, is if there's like a word or a feeling, an emotion that really resonates with you right now, that's something that you're trying to cultivate in your life. Mine being joy, which should now be, you know, sufficiently explained why that would be something that I'm very focused on. Is,
that makes sense.
You know, making all of these decisions in a way that's going to bring me much more joy, and whether that means stopping caring about if things are done perfectly, or saying no to things, or delegating things. Everything that I'm doing now in this life is around making more space for that.
Beautiful. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah,
and you deserve it. This is the season for you to really collect the rewards of all of your reap all the rewards of your hard work. Is there a word?
My hard work. That's like the hard work of being alive.
Yeah, of being a human.
It's complicated.
Of surviving the pandemic in a home with your fam and a bunch of teenagers. I think right now the word for me is contentment.
So good.
Yeah, I was thinking like delight, that's in there, presence is in there, but I think contentment, like really feeling a sense of groundedness and joy where I am. Because it's so easy for me, very similar to what you were describing, to just like look out for the next thing. Like, what's the next thing and what's the next thing? And, you know, especially with my skill set relationally, it's so easy to be like, great, nailed that. Now we're doing this. Now we're working on that. Now we're going to be focusing on this. And I think I just really want to be leaning into the good that's there, the things that are working and that are nourishing and that feel just really good to me right now. Like the simple delights that fill my cup, instead of looking for sort of these like bigger moments to bring the joy. Although there's room for that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's very similar to what you were describing in knowing what it felt like really knowing what it feels like to be like, the universe loves me. Like, I'm in my best self. I'm in full alignment. Like, everything is magnetic, you know. I was really embodying that in 2019, and there were a lot of things that were aligning and falling into place, and a lot of my energy was going into all of the right places to really cultivate those muscles for myself. And then 2020 to 2023, there were a lot of things that changed. Our friend group completely changed. We moved. There were a lot of things that happened relationally. I had to completely transform my my private practice from in person to virtual.
Yeah.
I literally signed a lease on a space, like my first lease on a space, 3 weeks before lockdown. And so there was just like so much to digest during that time that it was sort of like a slow forgetting of what it felt like to embody what at the time I would definitely name my best self. Like, that was my highest version of self. And so a lot of what created so much resistance and suffering for me was the attachment to that. Like holding on so tightly to that vision of myself, and the practices and the people and the environments and the circumstances that all nourished that didn't exist in the same way in the pandemic.
How did you learn to let go of that?
Like you, stewing in my own anger for like 2 years, until I was like,
It's not serving me.
It's not serving me, and I'm tired of holding all of this. It's so cruel to be treating myself, or not even treating myself, but just putting so much responsibility to hold so much anger and so much grief and so much just discontentment about how things look and feel. I just want to put it down. And so it's been, I would say this year has really been kind of like the opposite of the last few years, which is a slow remembering of like, oh, right. Wait, I really love being outside. Wow, it brings me a lot of joy to just like watch the bees. Like, I really love to dance to music that lights me up. Okay, all right. Yeah, like it's just been this slow reclaiming of all of these parts of myself that I feel like the anger just really covered up. It just sort of disconnected me from those parts. So leaning into contentment, reclaiming the light and joy, and finding maybe not even my way back to that part of myself, but figuring out what the next version of that, like what that next version of me looks like.
I love that. It's so descriptive, and contentment, I think, is the perfect way of describing all of those things. And like for me right now, joy is definitely coming from like pursuing my passions, from not worrying about how things are going to turn out, trying not to worry about how things are going to turn out. I had a dream last night that like I went for a walk with a friend, and then she like let it slip that one of our clients like hated me. And I was like,
that reaction.
I just woke up and I was like, what, was my self-esteem getting too high? Like, did my dream self need to like knock me down a peg? And it's like not even a client that I know, right? So it's like not, but it's just like, I woke up so funky this morning because of it. I was like, what is going on?
Oh, I have dreams all the time that are so realistic, and they'll include people that I know.
Yeah.
It's like that episode of Friends where like Phoebe's really mad at Ross, and he's like, what did I do? And then finally she says the thing, and he's like, I've never said that to you. Like, that has happened to me so many times where I wake up and now I'm really annoyed with this one person and then I'll see them and they'll be like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
this to you.
I know, but you did in my dream.
Someone's room over here.
Oh. Well,
Can I go shut it
pause
off
for a second.
Yeah,
Maybe,
sorry.
Turn off the.
I can definitely make it quieter in the recording.
The
but
AC?
just- Yeah, someone turn it on.
Okay.
Let me just turn it off real quick.
So just text Koba. Have to turn off the air until done recording.
This is so much better than the first
Isn't
one.
it so fun?
It just feels like we're chatting
Yeah,
and
that's all it
someone's
is.
recording us.
I love when people are like, "What are you gonna talk about?" I'm like, I don't know.
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
even read your bio until like 10 minutes before you walked in
I
the door.
love that so
It's
much.
like she's just cool. We'll have a cool conversation.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I love it. No agenda. I'm just gonna flow with it and see what happens. Yeah,
It's
great.
harder for me when it's someone I don't know because I feel like I need
Yeah.
like questions
Yes.
prepared, and then I'm like, but that's also not my nature to like.
Prepare.
I won't even
questions.
if I had a list of questions for you, I wouldn't remember to
And
ask them.
that makes me feel relieved.
Yeah.
Because Adriana sent over. She's like, here are the questions that like you might be asking you, and immediately it's like my perfectionistic brain is like, what am I
I
gonna
gotta
say to these
research.
areas? Yeah, exactly. Like I have to make sure that I've like memorized my answers, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
I don't remember
Sorry,
to
I
ask,
don't
and
know.
like the only question I ever really ask is if there's a word or a feeling that you're working towards, and then I'll remember to ask it at the very end.
I love that.
And then I'm like, but that was supposed to be the whole conversation.
I mean, it
yeah,
flows in
it
different
is.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Y'all were talking about dreams, but you don't have to keep going there. You can.
What?
Oh,
I said y'all were talking about dreams.
I think this
we
turned
popped
off.
out of the recorder. Neither of us have mic
Yeah.
sound anymore.
And this is now
Off.
Oh,
I see.
oh, okay, it's back.
I guess we
It's
just.
back. It's back.
Was it recording while you were gone too?
It was. I don't know why it stopped.
Okay.
Well, the video recording.
Maybe just like don't add in the part about this being so much better than my last podcast experience. I'm like not trying to make enemies.
Do it and tag them.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
People always said there's always one thing that someone will be like, can you edit that out? Sure.
Yeah.
It's on right recording.
Yeah. It's on. This is cool. I like hearing myself. It feels really
I
professional.
know, isn't it kind of fun?
It is kind of fun. I like it. It makes me feel like my inner child is like at the forefront.
Speaking.
Yeah, like, you know, when you would pretend to do concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had this technology?
Oh,
Oh my god, so good. My NSYNC performances would have been off the hook.
Oh man, I
With a
nailed a Britney Spears song in the car the other day.
Yes!
It was full volume.
Oh, so good.
So good.
So good.
Oh man. Okay, what were we talking about?
Dreams.
My dreams are so vivid, always. But also as I'm falling asleep, I'm gonna call it a prayer. You can interpret it however you want. But I like pray to whatever it is that exists, that like I will receive whatever message I need to receive while I'm sleeping.
I love that.
Because, you know, I want to optimize my productivity even when fast asleep.
So on brand for
I'm
you.
never not taking signs from the universe.
Versus chat. It's just
so-
going to sleep
yeah.
and it's like, good night, see
It's
you
like
in the
I'm
mañana.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so then it like also really rubs me the wrong way when it's something like that, because I'm like, was that a direct sign from the universe?
It's like, what is the message in there?
That people don't like me.
No.
I don't know. It's just hilarious.
That would have rattled me too.
Yeah.
You know,
The
it's
only
just
other
uncomfortable.
one. Well, so I went to see I guess a hypnotist is how she referred to herself, but she didn't
Cool.
hypnotize me. So
Oh.
being hypnotized is on my to-do list for this year.
Oh, okay.
And so if anybody has a great hypnotist, please send a referral. I enjoyed this woman anyway, but it wasn't, I'm the experience that I want to have
Yeah, what are you looking
is
for?
to be like laying down and sort of like drifting off into this like other land
Okay.
where I'm like aware but not aware.
Okay.
And they're like helping me overcome a fear.
Okay, so
This
are you
is what I
going?
want.
You're going for a particular,
Yeah.
like with a particular
Two
intention and
things.
outcome in mind.
I can't sleep alone in a house,
Ah,
which is extremely limiting as a 42-year-old woman.
right,
Like I don't want to always have to have someone around me,
right,
but I truly do. Otherwise I will stay awake all night long
right.
in so much fear that
Mhm.
like if a twig breaks outside, I'm like, I'll hide. Like it's not okay. definitely need that to go away. Like, I want to be able to go on vacation alone
Yeah.
or like go to the cabin for a night by myself. And
Mhm.
it's always been since I was 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I know where that comes. That's like a direct response to a trauma that happened in the middle of the night. So it's logical,
Okay.
but I like can't logic my way past the fear.
Right.
So I want that to happen. And I'm so scared of heights that like I can't, it's also limiting. And I'm not a person who appreciates being limited by what I can do. I don't want anyone to limit me.
Yeah.
And this is me limiting myself, or my subconscious limiting myself. I can't, like, Chad and I went on a very easy hike in Ojai, but because of the narrowness of the path, I couldn't continue. Like, my body stops to function, and then I get like really intense vertigo, and then I feel like I'm gonna fall. So then it's like, when you no longer trust your body to support you, and you're at great heights, then the fear is doubled.
It's amplified.
And I don't want to be that person. Like, on our honeymoon, he was like, there's this amazing waterfall, let's hike to it. And like, and I was like, well, this is where my journey with you ends. So here's my phone, and like report back with photo and video. Because I can't, like, I physically am not capable of doing it. And I don't want to be that way. So anyway, I need a hypnotist. So I was like, it was on my to-do list. I went in January. It was like, I'm knocking these things off one by one. Line dancing is also on there. And a ceramics class. So anyone is into any of these things, we need to do.
Our ceramic class. We've had that on our to-do list for like 3.5 years.
I'm running out of time because it has to happen in 2023.
Oh, okay, great. After this,
let's go.
Tune back.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We need to line dance and ceramicize.
Yes, ceramicize. I'm here for it.
So I tried, and it was not that kind of an experience, but she was more like a medium? I don't know. But she went into like, she took back lives down to like the year 400.
What?
Yeah, it was wild.
Did it resonate?
So much of it did.
Wow.
Yeah, and then so much of it, I'm like, waiting for the rest of the story to make sense. But she was like, this is not the first time you and Chad have been married. Like, you were married in like the year 1000 and like in the Middle East.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Which is funny because my mom is Arab, and she always tells Chad, like, she's like, you're our people, like we're claiming you as Middle Eastern because that's like his energy, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he has that.
Very interesting. And she also said so many of my past lives were just like all suffering. And I was like, well, that's gross. Why?
Right.
But I'm like, now I'm remembering why I brought this up. And it is because dreams, she told me that I travel so much in my dreams.
Oh.
And she's like, you're going to like full on, different realms. And I was like, well, why don't I remember those dreams? Why do I only remember the terrible ones where like, someone's dream cheating or like people don't like me? I want to remember being in like another realm. So
there's probably a reason why you don't remember this. It's like your psyche will block you from remembering that. I know it's not fair. It's not fair. I think that there are ways. I don't know enough about this, but I think that there are ways, like practices that you can do to like consciously travel in your dreams.
Oh, I'm there. Anything. I will dive deep into this whole
Interesting.
area.
I'm also thinking, based on what you just shared about like what you want to address in hypnotherapy and all these things, have you heard of or thought about EMDR?
I have heard of it.
That's
I have not tried it.
So it can be so effective
And
for
this
that.
is like eye movement
Desensitization. Yeah, I don't know the whole acronym.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing. I'm going into an EMDR training next month. It's been on my to-do list since I got licensed, and it's just been pushed back and back and back, and I'm finally doing it. So I'll have more information for you literally in a week. But I know that that's like that is something. Those pieces of like phobias or a very particular fear that talk therapy you just like can't really get through. That's where EMDR really thrives. It's almost like an unplugging of like the memory and the stimulus, and then a replugging in of something that's more adaptive. And it happens really like quite rapidly, and it doesn't require a ton of verbal processing, which I think is really interesting for memories that live in the body instead of in your cerebral brain, which is what you're describing, right?
That's the perfect way of explaining it.
Like,
Like
it's like you
my-
understand
yeah.
that trauma's over. Like, you
100%.
cognitively get it, but your body's like, no.
I've
We're
never
still in
been
danger.
able to move past it.
Right.
Yeah. Like since that night, and I don't mind, like I woke up to someone in my room and I was like 9 and then they attacked me.
What?
And so I had to like physically fight for my life and then they just like vanished. And then it was like, I literally have never slept alone
Of
in a
course
house.
not.
Well, that's not true. It has happened. I haven't slept. I have been alone in a house
Yeah.
throughout evenings.
That-
I also lived alone for many years, but not fun and not in a healthy way.
Right.
And so then all of the other things that came from that are like, I learned to fall asleep on the couch because you feel supported and
Mhm,
cocooned. I learned to
mhm.
like have a glass of wine before I go to bed
Mhm.
so that, you know, in theory helps you
Mhm.
fall asleep.
Mhm.
Terrible behaviors that I then
Mhm.
ingrained over like 20 something years.
Mhm.
And now I'm just like, I have had enough.
Mhm.
I just want to like
Mhm.
walk around and like feel safe. I know that
Totally.
I'm safe.
Yeah.
And also it's so random, so it's like it is what it is. But yeah, it's such a physical response in the body that I
Yeah.
can't shake.
It's the body just speaks such a different language than the brain.
Yeah.
You know,
You
like
gotta
you're-
unplug it.
Yeah, you gotta unplug it.
Unplug it and
Also,
rewire it.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's
Oh, I mean,
horrific.
yeah.
What?
It's gnarly.
As a 9-year-old, I would
Yeah.
never recover.
I'll tell you after this
Oh,
something even worse that happened right after that.
oh.
Emotionally worse. Nothing. There was no physical harm done to me. I'm so
Okay.
thankful for, but I mean, obviously the
God, yeah.
lasting emotional
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the-
remind me to tell you the full.
I will not forget. Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier, and maybe a part of it makes it into the intro, but not being able to share always your full story because of other listeners
Mm-hmm.
who may not take kindly.
Mm-hmm. Or who were a part of that in some way.
Yeah.
And yeah. That'll
There's
be
always
an
some
off
sort of
mic.
censoring
Yeah.
that happens.
It'll be an off mic.
But I try to be as honest as
Exchange.
possible. So for all you listeners out there, just know the story gets worse.
That's so not funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I know.
just have to laugh.
I
Oh.
mean, whatever, it is who I am. And you know, that truly shaped so much of my life moving forward after
Mhm.
that because I
I can
was
imagine.
alone for many years of my
Yeah.
life. But this, I don't want to stay on it for too long, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I don't think I've fully connected all of the dots until we're talking about it right now. Like when Lillian's dad and I separated,
Mhm.
we were living together in a different state with a 2-year-old, you know? And then he moved into his own place, and all of a sudden I had to take care of a child and also figure out how to sleep in a house alone. And even before that, because we had no money, we both were like living off of school loans, and he worked like a part-time minimum wage job.
Mhm.
And so because of that, like our hours, one of us was doing something 24 hours a day. And what he did was work the 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift. So every night I was alone. And the strain that put on our relationship was not helpful.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, just learning terrible coping mechanisms after that. Or choosing to be in relationships that were not good
Mhm.
because it was a physical body that was
Mhm.
present.
Mhm.
And that was the lesser of two evils, where it's like I can tolerate your shenanigans
Mhm.
because it's giving me security.
Mhm.
This is what I learned about in my 10 years of therapy.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, again, it makes total sense.
Yeah,
Like
like,
I
those were my coping mechanisms. I
Yeah.
had to find a way to stay alive.
Yes.
If you don't sleep ever, you're not gonna stay alive
Right.
in a meaningful way.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, that's like the perfect example of how our coping mechanisms are usually really adaptive when
Yeah.
they come online. Like we literally develop them to ensure
Oh, yeah.
our survival, and then at a certain point they get maladaptive and they no
Mhm.
longer serve the same purpose, and then we have to have, you know, like a kumbaya moment where we're like, okay,
Yeah.
how do I
Ready to
give you
release.
yeah, how do I give you a new job? Because the job you're currently doing is really just not working for me.
Yeah.
You know, but at the time of their birth or origin or however you want to name it, they work really well.
Yeah.
Like I just had this conversation with a client of mine where I'm like, nobody wakes up and is like, you know what? I feel like today's gonna be the day I'm gonna decide to be an addict. I'm just gonna we're just gonna see how that feels. We're just gonna try that on. Absolutely not. I've never heard anybody say that ever in any context ever, right? It's like, oh, I'm in a lot of pain and doing this thing makes me feel less pain and that's really functional for me, or that serves a purpose for me in this one moment, and so I'm gonna do it. And then down the line we see, okay, that's actually causing a lot more issues than it's solving, but in that moment it gave you the thing you were looking for, which is a relief from your pain.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, I don't know, I feel like we need to first kind of like think our defenses and be like, okay,
thank you for keeping me alive.
Yeah, thanks for keeping me alive. Sleeping on the couch, having a glass of wine. That worked.
Yeah.
And now I'm here. And I don't do that. And that was a really important part of my journey.
Well,
so thank you.
I'm like fully sugar addicted because I don't eat. I have no
Love
sweet
sugar
tooth,
so
but
much.
my sugar comes from wine. And so now it's like I mindlessly drink wine in the evenings because it's a pattern that is so ingrained. And then when I don't, then I'm like, God, don't we like keep sweets in the house?
Right.
Like, where's the candy?
Right. Right.
Oh, this is a different thing that I need to address now.
Totally.
I am just so fascinated by the human experience
Same.
and like all of the weirdnesses that we learn.
Me too.
I just can't, that's like truly the birthplace of this podcast was like people have crazy stories, crazy fun, interesting, weird, wild stories, and everyone's on their own little journey.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And it's like I think I'm like a full believer in like every theory that exists in the world, you know?
Yeah.
If you tell me something, I'm like, yep, that's also possible. Like,
I think
there's
that's beautiful.
nothing that's not possible.
I think that's so
that exists.
beautiful. That's amazing.
But it's fun and it makes, I love going and doing weird shit.
Me
But
too.
I will definitely, the
EMDR.
I've had 2 friends who've tried it and had nothing but like rave reviews and it really helped them. I didn't even think about it for my phobias.
It's super effective for phobias.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'll report back. Stay
Yeah.
tuned. We'll see if
Yeah.
this full-grown adult can sleep through the night.
Please do. I'm really here for the update.
Oh man, and also like there's so like flying trapeze, can't do it. Steep hikes,
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do flying trapeze? Is
Yeah.
that like a bucket list thing?
I don't know, maybe it is.
Yeah,
I'll never
that
know
sounds so
because
fun.
I can't even get to the platform to think about if I want to jump.
Right.
Skydiving, bungee
Right,
jumping. I
right.
don't ever want to go bungee jumping, but
Same.
like maybe I
No.
would skydive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hot air balloon.
Right. Oh, that's right.
Spiral staircases.
Right.
Glass staircases. Really, it's anything where you can see through to the bottom.
Or it's really
so
high
if you
up.
have
Oh,
floating
that's right.
stairs. It doesn't
Okay.
even have to be high up. I can't jump a fence. Right? How am I going to be a proper criminal on foot and like be pursued if I can't jump over a fence?
That is an obstacle. Yes.
It's just my life has become so limited, Like I have to live in the confines of 2 feet planted firmly on the ground.
Right.
We used to have a spiral staircase outside.
Gone.
Gone. It was a double whammy for me. You can see through the stairs, you know what I mean? Like floating stairs.
Yeah.
So you can see on both sides and through them.
Yeah.
So then it was like, oh, disorienting. But
Right.
also, it's a direct route for like serial killers to come right into my bedroom. So I was like, what is this house that's like playing to both of my phobias at the exact moment? It's gone.
Yeah.
By the way, it's like,
Right.
no more. That thing is toast. Wild.
Wow. What are the chances?
Right?
That would be on the side of your bedroom too. It's odd.
But maybe that was
The
intentional.
universal,
It
That's
was like,
the
it's
medicine.
time. It's time to address this. And I was like, no, it's not. I'm going to get rid of you. I will hide you.
Yes, and yet you're totally down to go and explore this.
I'm
Hypnotherapy.
so ready. Come on. Like,
EMDR.
yeah, I'm going to look into it. Or just wait for you to get your...
Yeah, or I can
You
just
get
practice on
licensed,
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
if you just wait 2 weeks,
Yeah.
you'll just
Oh,
be my
totally.
guinea pig, and I will just practice on you.
Yeah, it's been 32 years.
Just
I'm
kidding,
ready.
that's super unethical. Please don't ever anyone follow that advice or instructions at all.
That statement was not...
That was not approved by Andrea. And
Oh, man. But I
I would love that.
What is that wild sound that's happening? The people dragging things?
Hello?
Where's that coming from?
I see your dog in the hill, but like it's definitely not.
Oh yeah, Pip wants to escape to the top of that slope. She's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, I feel like this was a therapy session for me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, this was such a great conversation. I
Also-
thoroughly enjoyed this.
Here's hoping that the readers wanted to know more about my personal life.
Yeah.
Because that's all you got.
You are welcome.
This is what happens if you interview a psychotherapist and art therapist. You'll just spill all your deep, dark secrets.
I love it.
It's nice. It
I
feels
love
great.
it. Good. I'm so glad. This
I'm
was
so happy
wonderful.
you're here.
Yeah, me too. This was really awesome.
I feel like we could talk for
Forever.
hours.
Yeah. There's so many things that we didn't even.
Oh, I know. Well, now I want you to share with people how they can also participate in the joy of being in a conversation with you.
Aw.
So I know you do moon circles, which are amazing.
So I run the full moon circles at the Well-Loved Woman, which is in Topanga. So if you are in LA and you want to come gather under the full moon, you can find me at Well-Loved Woman. I also run a private practice. I have a few more spots open for individual clients. So if you're looking for a therapist and you're curious, you can reach out to me. I'll probably leave my email and all of my my Instagram handle and all of those things in the show notes.
Perfect.
But you can find me at Whole Human Healing on Instagram or wholehumanhealingla.com. And what else?
I remember when you were choosing that
The
name,
title.
and it's so perfect.
You think?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you're
I
healing
love
the
that.
whole
Yeah.
human. You know, like
Yeah.
we're what the sum of our parts, more than the sum of our parts,
Something like that. Yeah, whatever the
some
quote
sort
is.
of an expression around
Yeah,
there, but you
it's
know
really
what I mean.
deep. Yeah, it's really deep and profound. You'll Google it. It'll be great. Thank you. It feels really fitting for the type of work
Yeah.
that I do. Let's see, what else? And yeah, just hosting a lot of workshops and fun things around the city. I'm also working on my first product, which is really exciting. So
Cool.
hopefully I'll have some more information about that coming up. But yeah.
If anybody has not, well, first, if you haven't been to the Well-Lived Woman in Topanga and you're local, it's a must.
So beautiful.
It's such a beautiful space. I love being there for
Same.
anything. Like
For anything.
if it's for a
Yeah.
circle, if it's to shop, if it's just to say hi to Jamie, I'll go. They do co-working days
Love
on
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Just take your laptop, go sit and be surrounded by other wonderful humans.
Yep.
It's such a cool space in such a cool plaza.
Yeah.
It's a must. Also, if you've not done any sort of a circle setting, whether it's tarot or full moon or new moon or journaling, I am someone who's extremely, I get it's not nervous, but it's like the introversion part of I just don't love doing things for the first time
Yeah.
alone. And
Same.
I have always felt so supported and safe and secure in those settings.
Containers. Yeah.
So I would highly recommend, even if you're worried about, how am I going to be received, or I don't know anyone there, I don't know how this is going to go, I encourage you to just sign up for any kind of a circle and go be in a community of women
Yeah.
and see what
Absolutely.
happens, because it's magic.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Yeah, and I think specifically for the moon circles, the anonymity, I think, really contributes to the magic that happens in that space, because you can just show up and be completely truthful about whatever is happening in your life in that moment and not have to worry about how that's being received by someone that you know.
Yeah.
The fact that you're sharing that with a group of people that have no connection to your life otherwise, I think
Totally.
creates a lot of safety in sharing honestly.
Yeah. And you don't have to share. You can also, I feel like there's so much learning and healing that comes in listening to other people's stories.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm actually wrapping up a 4-week series at Well-Loved Woman where I was running a friendship group.
Oh, cool.
And so hopefully I'll be doing another round of that in a few weeks. But yeah, I'm always curious and open to hear what everyone's wanting some support around. I created the friendship group because it's what I was needing.
Yeah.
I was really just perplexed about the fact that we don't have any spaces to talk about the really just the struggles that exist in friendships.
Yeah.
Not only the struggles, the beautiful things about friendships and why they're worthwhile, and you know, the beautiful ways to make friends and maintain connections, and also what happens when there's conflict in a friendship. You know, what happens when a friendship ends and you have feelings about that, but there's no word to contextualize or describe what you're going through. You know, what happens when there's, you know, two friends sort of just start naturally drifting in different directions because of whatever's happening in the season of life. I feel like a lot of people treat that of just in a way of just kind of like stepping away and then chalking it up to, oh, we're just, you know, we're growing apart, just different things are happening. But there's really a lost or rather a missed opportunity to honor what was already there and also honor that you may just be in different places. And so it creates all of these sort of like accidental cutoffs and ruptures throughout your life that don't ever get addressed and healed, and then they repeat themselves. And so I was really wanting and craving a space to talk about that. And so I just sort of followed that. I was like, listen, if this is something that I'm chewing on and trying to metabolize and digest and sometimes have a hard time with, the reality or the likelihood that somebody else is also experiencing some level of this is probably high. So
I think everyone goes through it. I mean, we have, you know, you have a personal therapist for your own issues. You have marriage therapists or family therapists. There's no, I mean, you can get a career coach or a mindfulness coach, but it's all focused on like the self.
Right.
And there is not a platform for figuring out friendships, and many friendships are longer lasting than marriages.
Exactly. They're
So
long-term
complicated
committed relationships.
Yeah.
You know, I
With
remember
no language for how to talk to each other and grow and stay in relationship.
Or if not, how to end it with love instead of just completely cutting off and then being like, well, you know, things happen. Which
So
there's
cool.
there's space for that too, you know.
So maybe you'll do another one?
Yeah, I think I'll do another one.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, sign me up. Gotta do that. Some hypnotism, some EMDR,
smart therapy,
some art
Great.
therapy,
It's
some
great.
ceramicizing, and line dancing.
Yes.
Very full and
Agenda.
inflammatory. I love it.
Me too.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being here
you.
today.
It was so wonderful.
It was so wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
So sweet.